Coming up on this Monday edition of Newsline at noon, authorities suspect wild migratory ducks brought the H5N8 strain of bird flu to Korea's southwestern Jeolla region, where tens of thousands of birds have been culled. An employee of Korea's state trade promotion agency has been kidnapped by 4 armed men in Libya. No word yet from the kidnappers. Plus, Korea's Prime Minister vows to toughen penalties for leaking personal data after financial regulators confirmed an information leak involving 20 million bank and credit card users in Korea. These stories and more on Newsline at noon.
Thanks for joining us. You're watching Newsline at noon. I'm Choi Yusan in Seoul.
Very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. Let's start things off with the latest on the bird flu outbreak here in Korea. The government's ban on the movement of livestock and farm workers remains in place in parts of the country's southwest after authorities confirmed an outbreak of the highly pathogenic H5N8 strain of the virus at 2 farms.
In the latest development, officials say migratory ducks probably brought the virus to Korea. Park Ji-won starts us off.
The nation's agriculture ministry has confirmed a group of migratory ducks found dead in a reservoir near a poultry farm in southwestern Korea were infected with the H5N8 strain of the avian influenza. The farm in Gochang, Jeollado province was where the first case of the bird flu was confirmed late last week. Currently, bird flu cases have been confirmed at 3 poultry farms in Gochang and Buan counties. 2 of those cases have been confirmed as the highly pathogenic H5N8 strain. The other case has yet to be identified, but it is known to be one of the H5 strains. Ministry officials say it is highly likely the migratory ducks brought the virus to Korea. The Agriculture Ministry called an emergency meeting on Monday morning to discuss measures to respond to the virus should it spread nationwide. The Korean government has already banned the movement of livestock and livestock-related facilities and people in Korea's southwestern Jeollado province for 48 hours in an attempt to contain the outbreak.
The Korean government has ordered a temporary standstill on livestock, people working at livestock farms and livestock facilities in Jeollado province to curb the spread of the avian influenza according to the country's Livestock Infectious Diseases Prevention Act.
The order will remain in effect until midnight Monday, but the government might extend it according to the outcome of Monday's emergency meeting. Quarantine authorities say about 100,000 birds have been culled or will be culled over the next few days. Korea destroyed more than 5 million birds during the most recent bird flu outbreak in 2011. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now to the troubling news out of Libya. Seoul's foreign ministry says a Korean trade official was kidnapped in the Libyan capital of Tripoli on Sunday evening local time, which is early Monday morning here in Korea.
And for the latest, we have our foreign affairs correspondent Hwang Sung-hee on the line. Sung-hee, fill us in.
Yusan, the foreign ministry has confirmed the identity of the kidnapped man as Han Seok-woo, the head of trade relations at KOTRA, the Korea Trade Investment Promotion Agency in Libya. The ministry said Han was taken by 4 armed men on his way home from work on Sunday evening local time, which was around 1 a.m. Monday here in Korea. The incident was reported by Han's driver, who was with him at the time of the abduction. He told the Korean embassy in Libya that the kidnappers took Han in their car and headed west of Tripoli. Not much information has been released about the identity or motive of the kidnappers, although Al Jazeera has reported that Al-Qaeda may be behind the abduction.
So, Sung-hee, how is the Korean government responding to this?
Well, the government and KOTRA convened an emergency meeting earlier this morning to discuss the incident. A task force headed by the foreign ministry has also been set up, and it will be working around the clock on the case. The foreign ministry said that it will be working closely with all channels, including the Libyan government, for the swift and safe release of the abductee. The government also plans to upgrade the current travel warning for Libya to a travel ban. As of January 18th, there were approximately 551 Koreans residing in Libya. And although there has been a number of robbery cases against Koreans in Libya in the past, this is the first time a Korean has been kidnapped there. Guys?
Well, we're all hoping for the safe release of the abductee.
Yes, thank you very much, Sung-hee, and please keep us updated as that story develops. Now, China has opened a memorial hall honouring a Korean independence hero who, over 1 century ago, assassinated a top Japanese official preparing Japan's annexation of the Korean peninsula.
The memorial hall is likely to aggravate China's already frosty relations with Japan. Tokyo has protested at Beijing's plan to honor the Korean. Our Shin Se-min has more.
A memorial hall honoring Korean patriot An Jung-geun has opened in the northeastern Chinese city of Harbin. The city's railway station is where in 1909 An shot and killed Hirobumi Ito, who had served as the Prime Minister of Japan 4 times before becoming Resident General of Korea in 1905. The memorial hall consists of exhibition rooms telling the story of An's life and shows the exact spot where the shooting took place. The facility was built after President Park Geun-hye brought up the idea of creating a monument for An during her meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping last June. Hailed as a hero in Korea and China, An is considered a murderer by many Japanese. Tokyo had asked Beijing to scrap plans to build a memorial. And in the meantime, Beijing and Tokyo continue to be at each other's throat over a variety of issues, including Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's recent visit to the Yasukuni War Shrine, which honors Japanese war dead, as well as several Class A war criminals. Japan's ambassador to the U.S. fired the latest salvo, accusing China of a misled campaign that falsely portrays Abe as glorifying Tokyo's militaristic past. Both Japan and China have come under international scrutiny in recent months. Japan for Abe's Yasukuni visit and China for its recent demarcation of a new air defense zone over a disputed area of the East China Sea. Seoul and Beijing have condemned Japanese politicians' visit to the Yasukuni Shrine and for Tokyo's refusal to apologize for the nation's wartime atrocities. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
A monument remembering the suffering of thousands of women drafted into sexual slavery by the Japanese military during World War II has been built in the U.S. state of New York. Resolutions from both the New York State Senate and the New York House are engraved on the statue, helping to remember the victims who suffered. Officials say an opening ceremony will be held on Friday. Last Friday, U.S. President Barack Obama has signed into a federal spending bill that includes a provision on Japan's wartime sexual enslavement. The bill cites a 2007 resolution asking for the Japanese government to address the issue of the so-called comfort women, mainly from Korea and China, who were forced into sexual servitude for Japanese soldiers during World War II. The Korean government is putting more emphasis on supporting Korean history research and education in an effort to strengthen the field. The Education Ministry says a special task force team has been set up to support research projects in colleges and institutions and will provide history teachers with strict teaching guidelines. The team will also work to counter false claims made by neighboring countries. As part of efforts to improve the nation's awareness of history, the government announced last August that it will require students take Korean history as part of the National College Entrance Exam from 2017. Top U.S. officials will be in Seoul this month to address uncertainties in the region stemming from North Korea. U.S. Deputy Secretary of State William Burns, who will arrive in Seoul today, is scheduled for talks with South Korea's top presidential security advisor Kim Jang-soo and Vice Foreign Minister Kim Kyu-hyun. Burns' visit comes after Pyongyang proposed the two Koreas stop any actions that could stoke tensions on the peninsula, such as calling off Seoul's annual military exercises with Washington next month. U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asia Daniel Russell will visit Seoul on Sunday to discuss regional issues, including strained ties in Northeast Asia, following the Japanese Prime Minister's controversial war shrine visit. Prime Minister Chung Won has ordered the chief of the nation's financial regulatory watchdog to come down hard on those found responsible for the mass data leak of more than 20 million bank and credit card users here in Korea. Hwang Sung-hee has the details.
Korea's financial regulators on Sunday confirmed that the personal data of some 20 million bank clients and credit card users have been leaked. This includes almost all economically active people in Korea, including minister-level officials and celebrities. The Financial Supervisory Service says information taken includes the names, phone numbers, credit card numbers, addresses, and even banking records of millions of customers. The data was stolen from local credit card firms KB국민카드, 롯데카드, and NH-농협카드. Authorities say an employee from personal credit ratings company Korea Credit Bureau stole customer data from the three firms and later sold the information to phone marketing companies. The employee was arrested earlier this month. State prosecutors have moved to reassure the public that this incident has not resulted in the leakage of any information to criminal organizations, for now at least. The Financial Supervisory Service says the credit card companies will cover any financial losses caused to their customers, while the watchdog is pushing to strengthen related regulations by having financial firms tighten restrictions to access client information. It's warning customers to be alert to online and phone-based financial scams. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
Korea's producer prices fell for the 15th straight month in December as the strong local currency cut import prices. The Bank of Korea said Monday that the nation's producer prices dropped 0.4% last month from the same period a year earlier. Producer prices for 2013 also fell 1.6% from the previous year. The Producer Price Index, which is a barometer of future consumer inflation, indicates a low inflation trend might continue for the time being. The Korean government has pledged nearly $660 million for the country's basic research projects this year. That's about $17 million more than last year, and the Science Ministry says it will work to reduce competition in selecting candidates for financial support. The ministry also hopes to see more innovative research ideas and plans to bring experienced and young researchers to work together in partnership. There will also be increased opportunities for female researchers and those based outside of Seoul. President Park Geun-hye, on a state visit to Switzerland, has been busy promoting Korean culture and taking part in various performance-related events. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Jin-ju, who is travelling with the president, sent us this report.
President Park has been putting great emphasis on culture as a means to better communicate and connect with local people when she travels to different countries. She made sure to keep this tradition going in Switzerland. The president attended the Korea Fantasy on Sunday, a performance composed of various Korean traditional dances by the National Theatre of Korea at the Pal Clay Center in Bern. The Korea Fantasy has been performed more than 600 times in some 60 countries to promote Korean dance to global audiences.
한국 전통 춤은 무용은 역동성이 있으면서도 또 정적인 면이 있다고 하는데 오늘 여러분 보시면서 그렇게 느끼셨습니까?
The Presidential Office of Cheongwada says the president's participation in the event demonstrates her determination to expand the Korean wave, or Hallyu, which is currently centered around Korean dramas and pop culture, to traditional culture and even fine art. Ahead of the performance, President Park also looked around an exhibition on the life and work of German-Swiss painter Paul Klee, who is known for painting the first abstract works in the 20th century, along with Russian artist Vasily Kandinsky. She also met with 6 pro-Korean figures in Switzerland, 3 of whom worked at the Neutral Nations Supervisory Commission in Korea, and called on them to act as a bridge between the two nations in their respective sectors. President Park is scheduled to hold bilateral talks with President of the Swiss Confederation, Didier Reynders, on Monday, and seek ways to strengthen cooperation in the sector of advanced technology and benchmark Switzerland's educational system. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News, Bern.
For your fill of Korean and international news. Join Chae Yu-sun and Mark Broom every weekday at lunchtime. Newsline at noon.
Plenary session this Wednesday and vote on the government restructuring bills.
Protesters attacked riot police in the Ukrainian capital Kiev on Sunday as tens of thousands of Ukrainians massed in defiance of sweeping new laws aimed at stamping out anti-government demonstrations. The country's president has agreed to sit down for talks with the protesters and opposition leaders. Our Sun Jung-in has more.
Laws to curb public protests have added extra spice to anti-government protests in Ukraine. Nearly 200,000 protesters massed in Kiev Sunday in defiance of the new legislation, which bans Ukrainians from nearly all forms of protest. The rally turned violent when demonstrators clashed with police as they tried to march towards the parliament building from the main square. The protesters set a police bus on fire and used stun grenades on riot police, who blocked the street and fired tear gas at the approaching masses. Scores of people were injured in the clashes, including more than a dozen police officers. Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych caused uproar last Friday when he signed into force a set of tough new laws that banned virtually all forms of anti-government protests. The new legislation, criticized by the U.S. and the EU as undemocratic, bans any unauthorized installation of tents, stages, or amplifiers. It also allows to impose hefty fines and prison terms of up to 15 years for breaches of public order. The political crisis in Ukraine erupted 2 months ago after Yanukovych walked away from a landmark free trade deal with the EU in favor of closer economic ties with Russia. Sun Jung-in, Arirang News.
The United Nations has invited Iran to this week's international talks in Switzerland to end the Syrian civil war, and Tehran has accepted the offer. While UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said he has received assurances that Iran will play a positive role in establishing a transitional government in Syria, the Western-backed main opposition group, the Syrian National Coalition, said it would not attend the upcoming talks with Tehran on board. The U.S., a major party to the conference, said Iran, an ally of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, must abide by a transitional government deal struck in 2012. In a separate development, President Assad has reportedly said his stepping down is not an option. Damascus later dismissed the report, calling it inaccurate without giving further details.
Taliban insurgents attacked a Pakistani military convoy on Sunday, killing 22 soldiers and wounding at least 30 others in what was the biggest attack on Pakistani security forces in months. The bomb was planted in a civilian vehicle rented locally for troop transport in the northwestern town of Bannu. It went off as the convoy was about to leave for nearby North Waziristan, a lawless tribal region on the Afghan border, with scores of al-Qaeda-linked militant groups located there. The Pakistani Taliban has claimed responsibility for this attack, adding they will carry out many more attacks like this, despite having indicated recently that they might be open to peace talks with the government. U.S. authorities are looking into the credibility of a possible new threat to the Sochi Winter Olympics. ABC News reported Sunday that Islamist militants in Russia released a video recorded by 2 suicide bombers who said the Olympics will not be safe, adding that they have a present ready for the Games. The opening ceremony will be held on February 7th in Sochi. In the face of concerns about possible attacks by militants, U.S. military and intelligence officials have been studying contingency plans for evacuating Americans from Sochi in the case of a crisis. But U.S. officials have concluded there would be major obstacles to mounting a large-scale mission, as Russian authorities have historically been reluctant to allow foreign military forces, especially those of the United States, onto Russian territory. Korea's first polar research center on Antarctica is slated for completion in mid-February. The government will dispatch a research team to the center at the end of the month, and they will be stationed on the frozen continent for exactly 1 year. Kim Min-ji reports.
This is Changbogo Antarctic Research Station, Korea's first research center on the southern continent. With a floor area of 4,500 square meters, it can accommodate 60 people and is capable of generating its own electricity using solar and wind energy. The researchers who will be dispatched to the station at the end of the month have undergone intense training to enable them to endure the harsh landscape and unpredictable weather on the frozen land. Although the center will be equipped with doctors and medical equipment, the researchers have also learned to perform cardiopulmonary resuscitation in case of an emergency. The research team also has members who can cook, which might be a major task given that people in the Antarctic usually see their body weight fall about 8 kilograms. The new polar station is just over 80% complete and is slated for completion on February 14th. That's about a month faster than expected, which is quite a feat since construction can only be done 65 days out of the year due to the extreme weather on the continent. But fierce winter weather is expected in March, and if the station isn't finished by then, construction will have to be stopped and resumed in December. If, on the other hand, all goes according to plan and the weather cooperates, the first batch of researchers will depart for Changbogo Antarctic Research Station next weekend, and they are scheduled to be there until December 31st. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Well, it's perfect weather for ice fishing because we had an awful lot of snow this morning. But for a time to get a check on the weather, we go over to our Jian, who's standing by at the Weather Center. Hello there, Jian.
Good afternoon, Mark and Yuza. I know, what a snowy day today, huh?
It certainly is. So, Jian, how much snow did we get here in the capital today?
Well, we've got about 4.3 centimeters of snow this morning in Seoul. The snow has stopped falling for now, but will return later in the day. Meantime, in the afternoon, we'll have some smog lingering in the air, so please be aware of that. And late this afternoon, the Seoul metro area and parts of Chungcheong-do are expected to get about 1 to 3 centimeters of snow, and other regions should see about 1 to 5 centimeters of more snow, so please be extra careful out on the roads. Now, the snowfall should ease up tonight, but regions down south might continue to see snow until tomorrow morning, and we'll also have colder air coming into the country, which will drag down the temperatures to freezing side again. So for the next couple of days, it will be quite chilly again, but temperature should get back up to above the seasonal averages towards the end of the week. And top temperatures for today should be about 2 to 3 degrees higher than yesterday, even if it's snowy out there. The afternoon high in Seoul will get up to 2. Daegu and Gwangju should make it to 6, and Busan will top out at 9. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju will climb up to 10 in the afternoon, and Daejeon will get up to 6, while the top temperature on Kumgangsan Mountain will be at -2. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. That's all for me today. Back to Mark and Yusan in the studio.
Okay, thank you very much, Jiyeon, for the weather there. And those are the stories we're following at this hour.
Join us again tomorrow at the same time, right here in Seoul.